So we'll try to enrich the way that we can answer this question together. Maybe to introduce yourself, we make some round table. Let's start with Raul. Raul, you're the executive director of MOTI, so it's Museum of Tomorrow International. It's an initiative that was born with Museo de Amania in Rio. And today with the Forms community, you are looking into the future.
That's right. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's super inspiring, my first experience of ChangeNOW, so I just want to thank the organizers. Yes, MOTI grew out of, it's an international branch of the Museum of Tomorrow in Rio. And the Museum of Tomorrow is probably, I believe, the first museum with a future orientation focus. There's no collection, and it's about how do we engage with the future, how do we diversify, decolonize, and democratize our futures. Immediately, it was clear that the Museum of Tomorrow, that we needed a way to include the planet, to include other museums that emerged and that used the Museum of Tomorrow as a reference to come together in different ways. MOTI's tagline is New Planetary Narratives, and it's quite an ambitious tagline. But immediately we recognized and realized that in order to come up with new planetary narratives, we needed to co-create what those narratives might be, and ultimately to question how we come together. What are the ways? So it's more than just kind of a delivery of content, of knowledge, but really question how we enter into a space of co-creation. So Forms is our main project, our cherished project. It's still in its infancy, even though we've been around since 2019. And we bring together, we're now over 30 museums from around the world that are futures-oriented. So futures-oriented both in terms of the theme of the museum being focused on the future, but also a serious questioning on what is the role of museums in the 21st century. And so besides museums, we also bring together artists, scientists, philanthropists, and our main seed to generate collaborations is around two gatherings that we do, 2 gatherings per year. And the first one is in a nature-rich location where we brainstorm in a retreat mode, and we bring our bodies, our minds together in different ways. And the second one is when we use some of the co-creation that emerged in that first gathering to actually engage with the public in a future-oriented museum that's part of our network. So last year we were in Barcelona in the Pyrenees, and then we actually tested and experimented with the public at Futurium Museum in Berlin. And this year we just came back from Tunisia for our retreat session, and we're going to the Museum of Tomorrow in September. So that's
amazing. Thanks. Cédric Carles.
Hello.
You're a designer, you're a community builder artist, energetic artist as well, energetic artist.
Energetic artist, yes. Perhaps, yes.
Yes. And with your ongoing project, which is Paleo Art, you're more looking into the past. Maybe you can share a bit with us.
Exactly. So I'm a designer first, but also artist, and I quit my hat of a solitary genius to make collective project from the beginning. And then, I mean, first I built a community based on DJs and music called the Solar Sound System. And it's a DJ Boost. We work with solar panel and bicycle powered. We do this now for 22 years. It's a long-term project, finally, and it's bringing also artists behind the decks, working with solar energy and autonomous experience. It's an autonomous experience, and all these artists label, I mean, hundreds of labels and artists became ambassadors also of the project and on this experience. And then looking for innovation, I built in 2015 a project called Paleo Energetic. That is a crowdsourcing on energy innovation. So all these forgotten patents about biogas, geothermy, energy storage, batteries, all the stuff. It's an amazing project. It's also already a collective work, a collective book called Rétrofutur, une contre-histoire des innovations énergétiques, translated in Japanese and in Arabic, in English too. So the idea is to show to the people that there is many solutions already done, but not in the radar of the industry, and we can say the Anthropocene and capitalism industry.
They are not mainstream.
So because there is no patent to do so, and today we are pushing art with all this inspiring material. We have a project called Rétrofutur Museum. So I'm really glad to be here with you today, and it's a past future oriented museum, and we have the building authorization from Paris City to build a small first micro Rétrofutur museum in the 13th district in Paris.
I just secretly tell you that Raul is looking for French member for MOTI.
Sorry?
Raul is looking for such French members for Museum of Tomorrow.
Yeah. So
you're in.
That's perfect. That's I think we're gonna make something with that. Yeah. And then we also discover a patent from the 80s that is able to recharge non-rechargeable batteries. That is a planned obsolescence project for more than 50 years today. So we are also here in ChangeNOW with the RegenFab and the RegenBox project, and it's amazing. I mean, I'm an artist, but I have different role, and I think that the project Paleo Art also is to take all this material to make a narrative, a positive narrative. It's really important, and to engage also other artists to make a collective project and to stop to be alone in the room and trying to be inspired by something. So I think the artists with their sensitivity are recording the world, and they have to translate it in organization, enterprise, NGOs, collectives, politics also. I think art must be more in the politics in a way to inspire people with some vision, like we have seen Mesopolis today. We need so much that.
Thank you, Cédric. Now it's your turn, Angelo, to tell us a bit more about you. You're an architect, you're an artist and a designer as well. And what connects all your research is that you are questioning our relationship with nature. Maybe you can illustrate that and tell us more about your last project, which is called Sweep Island.
Yes, thank you again for the invitation. I'm sorry to not be there. I would be also very nice to talk with you there, but let's say I'm here, so I will try to explain a bit what I do. As you said, I'm an architect, but I think my work, they're a bit more in between art, landscape architecture, and architecture, I would say. I'm really, interested about the idea of designing nature, and that's something I always try to develop with my work, with my project. Of course, it's a very, very big ambition, but I think it's also very relevant today, no? And that's why probably also speak about this kind of project is very important. I'm based in Prato, that is, nearby Florence, where I have my small studio, and we are, working on several projects related with this idea of designing with nature. Sweep Island is one of that. Maybe we have also some slides, so I don't know if it's possible to show to you. Sweep Island is actually an ongoing project, is actually a sort of research project, and is an artificial island that we are designing, a small island that will able to support marine life and at the same time also collect microplastic. Maybe if you can go to the other slide, actually to the first one, where you can see a bit the map The island will be located in the Mediterranean Sea, in front actually of the archipelago Tuscany. That is called the Pelago Sanctuary. It's actually a protected marine life that has been established between Italy and France in 1999. Not many people knows about this area, but it's a very interesting area in the Mediterranean Sea. That is one of the most actually biodiverse area in the Mediterranean area. More than 20% of the species actually of the, let's say, of the Mediterranean area are located in this sort of small sea area. And at the same time, is one of the most polluted area of the let's say of the Mediterranean Sea, with of course problems related with plastic, but also in general sort of human pressure related with traffic and boat traffic. So there is this sort of overlapping of this let's say two things. One is the biodiversity. There are dolphins, turtles, whales that actually live in this area. At the same time, we have this problem of, let's say, pollution and especially microplastic. So the idea here is to create an island that actually can support the marine life, but at the same time can, let's say, intercept plastic. Of course, this is a very big issue, and probably we will not also have the time to go through this. But I think everyone is a bit aware about plastic and how this can affect, of course, not only the environment, but also ourselves. And here you can see also this map shows how actually, for example, birds also, is a sort of tracking map will show how birds, let's say, cross. So this is important for, let's say, this area is important for marine life, but it's also important for birds because they, let's say, cross this area when they migrate to, from north to south. So the idea of this island, maybe if you can go please to the next slide, is actually a sort of an artificial island that is in some way designed, created. We are now working on the realization of the first prototype. But it's not only, let's say, to build or to solve problem. Of course, design, and I think sometimes also art, have the power to solve issues. But what I'm also very interested in about storytelling and actually show through projects the possibility to, in some way, create narratives, to show, let's say, stories to people that, for example, they don't know about this area or they don't know about these issues. No? So using the project actually to create a sort of imagination, to create an idea, I think is also very, very relevant. And that's what also this little project tried to do. Of course, this project is important to say that it will not solve, the plastic pollution of the Mediterranean area. It's a very big things that, require also changes in a way we live, in some way we approach materials. But again, is a sort of also provocation, maybe, no? And also maybe what art can do, from my point of view. So, thanks.
Thank you, Angelo. Listening to you, I'm wondering, should we trust artists, all right, but which kind of world can we trust artists to actually build? You've been, and we've been talking about new narratives, like new worldviews, a way of seeing the world, and so on. But can we also expect, as an artist, or cultural institution, do you feel that your responsibility is towards creating new narrative or concretely changing things locally or, in your projects? Maybe, Angelo, you can start.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, also very complex question to answer. I think as a designer, as an artist probably, I feel the responsibility, to, in some way, as you were also mentioning, to create, let's say, a better world, to actually inspire also other people. I think, going back to your question, I think artists have always, in some way, shaped the world. This idea of that the artist create the world, I think is already, in some way, if you look back in the history of human, has already, let's say, happened. So in that sense, I think, when we speak about transform the planet, building the things in the planet we live, is not only about building in concrete, but also building, let's say, narrative and imagination is already probably a first step to transform our planet. And in that sense, I think artists probably are the most, let's say, important, let's say, personality that actually can do that. And in the sense that they are in some way anticipator, no? They anticipate changes that are already happening or they will happen. So in that sense, that's why they have, I think, an important responsibility. I think it's also important to mention that from my point of view, artists is not only the people, you know, that are making paintings or sculptures, but artists are the one that have a sort of creative approach to life. And that's, you know, can be applied to any profession. It can be a writer, it can be a chef, it can be a designer, an architect that has a sort of creative approach to life and try to, through his work, to in some way change, you know, what is, let's say, sort of routine or standard way to approach the profession. So I think with this sort of idea, any one of us can actually be an artist, no? And can be, let's say, a bit sort of, can transform a bit the environment around, let's say, around us. So in my point of view, the answer, of course, is yes, and I think can be very important, no? When we think about, let's say, climate crisis, when we think about the environment, that any small stories can actually affect the environment we live. So we don't have to be, I think, afraid when we speak about transformation or change. I think we don't have to be afraid of small changes. I think the small changes are the one that they can actually impact more in terms of long-term, also in terms of long-term changes and transformation.
Thank you, Angelo. Guys, do you agree? Do you want to add anything?
Yes, and then I can also perhaps say that I just read something about some artists that are really afraid to talk about politics and ecology in their work, but on social media. And I can say to these artists, like, don't be afraid. Be more afraid from climate change and water problems than social networking and your career. And it's also like a responsibility, you know, to take the microphone and to say something. And yeah, don't be afraid. That's my message to other artists that say, I cannot talk about this because people will launch me on social network, blah, blah, blah. So please take the mic.
Yeah, I also appreciate Inez's comment about that I think we are all artists in some respect. We all have this ability to express ourselves, sometimes untapped. So how can we untap this potential so that we can all be world builders? And I also appreciate very much, I think Timothy Morton says that art is of the future. The idea being that art spills any categories. This category of art is a box for all things that don't have a box. And that we should, maybe one path forward in terms of how do we approach the future is to not be so caught up in trying to predict, to control, to optimize the future. As we've seen from so many examples with COVID just recently, we were perfectly able to predict the future, but we weren't able to do anything about it. So can we tap into this ability to embrace uncertainty, to appreciate complexity, which is at the key of art, and I think of a more generous, regenerative capacity for us all to co-create futures. So I think that's a mission for us as well, is for institutions to be able to, museums have this, speaking of trust, data has shown that museums are one of the most trusted institutions there are in a world in which trust is being corroded at so many levels. So in order for museums to promote and to a space for co-creating futures, for the public to co-create futures, not to give a controlled and a particular message of what the future is, that the teams and the institutional ecosystem needs to change. It can't go on with its own boxes. How do we curate an exhibition and you have a step-by-step process? Are there ways in which to disrupt that process so that actually in the institutional makeup of museums, you can actually embrace this idea of uncertainty? You're not just talking, but you're actually walking the talk. You become a little bit more vulnerable. Maybe you're a little bit more, you have to be more open to risks. But in that process, we can actually really co-create more generous, more open futures that are reflective of our incredible multiverse culture around the world. So, yeah.
About this question of trust, I think what is making things difficult as well is the fear of maybe being the tool, like instrumentalized political tool for political sides or for corporations as well. I mean, from the business world, I feel there is this fear. I mean, to step up as a world builder and to offer a new narrative is always as well. I mean, it makes possible the fact that you are attacked because it's being used by some people then. This question of future for me, it's tricky because now the narrative, they are maybe more controlled by, I mean, we can say that sometimes they are controlled by politics, they are controlled by marketing as well. So how the artists can actually build this trust and be more trusted as in their vision.
I think to rebuild the trust is also like to rebuild the trust in science.
Mm-hmm.
And because I think that the schools today are not making their job, talking about more about energy, for real, biodiversity, water. It's only 2-3 hours a year in your career inside the school. It's nothing. So, but I think artists can also like be more close to science, to rebuild something together. So we work a lot with scientists and also in Aerocene project. There is people from MIT, for example, in paleo-energetic, there is a famous scientist and historian on board. So they gave us also the power to translate their mind to the people. So art, science, trust can be a sort of new way to rebuild trust to the people, I think. And in education also, like we can say popular education. We need to be educated and we need to learn. We want to face this, I can say, like chaos, climate chaos. The UK say climate chaos. So we have to educate, learn, teach, work all together, and we have to invent also methodologies for that.
Yeah, but what is scary is that it's the same for environmental issues or for diversity, inclusion, gender equality, and so on, is that we know the numbers. The analysis, the knowledge is here, the solution, they are here, but still, so how can the artist work on that to actually make things happen?
Yeah, I think, I wonder if the role, if there is a specific, I mean, it's such a broad term to talk about artists and trust. And in some ways, I mean, maybe a little bit aside to the point, I think artists, what we need, what all of us need is, in some sense, a sense of unfinished worlds. In that sense of, can we occupy places? I mean, cities have become so hyper-designed, and so where are the spaces for invention, for accidents, for positive accidents, for synchronicities to happen, for us, for physical encounters to occur, in which sparks that cannot be imagined, they cannot be pre-designed. The moment they're designed, they're already mapped out. I think it's the difference maybe between the architect and the gardener. I think we've been not so good as being architects in terms of designing and planning our way forward. We're doing that a lot. We're not doing it maybe very well, I mean, given the situation we're in. Can we be more gardeners? Can we create the conditions for rich soil in which you don't know what will come out of it, but you know it will be diverse. You know it will it will come out of these sparks.
And the sparks you are talking about, actually, they are, most of the time, they are quite emotional. I mean, they are based of emotional reactions. When we discussed previously, you told me that you were feeling that your mission was to create these spaces for emotion, like emotion laboratory, like art performance or art installations could be these laboratories for emotion to rise.
Yes, I mean my fuel, if I can say fuel, is the social feedback of the people. For many years, that is my way to work collectively, and I mean, since 20 years, I can see. I think it's not enough quick, but there is a big movement. Also with the youngs today, more and more artists is talking about that. More and more young engineers, also people who work in marketing and stuff. They want to work in a factory where they talk about this, where they do that. Nobody wants to work in some industry that is destroying the planet. So, and these people have big problems to recruit some people, to take some people on board, because the people, they don't want anymore that. So I think there is mindset changing. Perhaps it's not too fast, but it's coming.
Thank you very much. We'll finish on this positive note. I think you can follow all of your projects online, like on LinkedIn or Instagram. So thank you very much, Raul. Thank you, Cédric. Thank you, Angelo.
Thank you
for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.